We think we have a pretty good handle on history, right? We've got our timelines, our textbooks. It all seems to fit. But what if some discoveries don't just add a new chapter? What if they threaten to rip the whole book apart? Today, we're opening up the case files on some truly strange artifacts, objects that just don't belong, hinting that our past is a whole lot weirder and way more mysterious than we've been told.
Yeah, that really nails it, doesn't it? See, we're not talking about myths or legends here. We're talking about real, physical objects that pop up, cause a massive stir, and then, more often than not, just disappear from public view. They are history's great puzzles, and today we're going to try to put a few of those pieces together. All right, so here's our game plan. We're going to start by setting the stage, and then we're diving into three incredible case files. A Mayan king's tomb that looks suspiciously like a cockpit, some forbidden paintings of ancient sky beings, and a map of America that was supposedly drawn before Columbus was even born. Then we'll try to connect the dots and figure out what it all means. So the artifacts we're looking at, they all share this one kind of weird fate. They're discovered, they create this absolute storm of controversy, and then poof, access to them suddenly becomes really, really difficult, leaving all the biggest questions just hanging in the air. Okay, case file number 1. For this, we're heading deep into the rainforests of southern Mexico, to the ancient Mayan city of Palenque, because it's here, buried beneath the Temple of the Inscriptions, that we find the tomb of one of their greatest kings, a man named Kinich Janub Pakal. And what they've found on his tomb, well, people have been fighting about it for over 50 years. So who was this king? Well, Pakal the Great wasn't just some ruler. He was a true visionary. He reigned for almost 70 years, and in that time, he commissioned some of the most stunning architecture the Maya ever produced. I mean, these people were absolute masters of math and astronomy, building entire cities to align with the stars. This was an incredibly sophisticated civilization, which is what makes the carving on his coffin so mind-bending. Okay, so here we have the two competing ideas side by side. On the left, you've got the official story from academia. They say it's beautiful spiritual symbolism. It's Pakal falling into the underworld, traveling along the world tree on his way to be reborn. But then there's the other view, the one that asks you to just look with your own eyes. Look at his posture. He's leaning forward, seated. Look at his hands. They're right on what look like controls. He's even got his foot on some kind of pedal. And don't even get me started on the flames and exhaust blasting out of the bottom. It just looks less like a tree and, well, a lot more like a machine. So which is it? A beautiful metaphor for a journey to the afterlife? Or a literal carving of a technology that shouldn't exist? The debate still rages, but here's the kicker. Since the 1990s, the Mexican government has made it almost impossible to get down there and see the real thing. The actual tomb is basically sealed off, leaving us with photographs. And one very, very big question. Our next case, it really builds on this theme of forbidden knowledge, but for a totally different reason. This time we're traveling all the way to the remote Kimberley region of Australia, which is home to a mystery that has been protected by a living culture for literally thousands of years. Let me introduce you to the Wandjina. Now, according to the Aboriginal dreaming, these aren't just spirits or abstract gods. No, they are the actual great sky beings who came down from the clouds, created the world, and gave laws to the people. And when they were done, they painted their own images onto the rocks, a sacred tradition that is still carried on today. And you can see right away why these paintings are so captivating. The Wandjina art style is just unlike anything else in the world. Notice how they're always shown facing forward, with these huge dark eyes and no mouths. They have these halos around their heads that look almost like some kind of helmet, and they're usually surrounded by lightning or clouds. But the most incredible part? This exact style has been perfectly preserved, repainted by generations of elders for at least 5,000 years. And this quote, this really explains why this mystery is sealed. The Aboriginal custodians of these sites have turned down request after request for major scientific studies. The elders say this knowledge isn't some artifact you can just take to a lab. It's a living, sacred thing, so access is forbidden. Not to be secretive, but out of pure reverence. It's a mystery that's being protected by choice. All right, our final case file. It's just a single piece of old parchment, but it's a piece of parchment that, according to our history books, simply shouldn't exist. It kicked off one of the biggest, most bitter academic fights of the last century, a fight that's still sort of quietly going on today. This is the story of the Vinland map. The history of this map is a total roller coaster. Okay, so in the 1960s, Yale University announces this absolute bombshell. They have a map from around 1440 that clearly shows North America, decades before Columbus. Boom, history rewritten. But then scientists test the ink and find a compound that was only invented in the 20th century, so it's a fake. But wait, in the 90s, new carbon dating proves the parchment is the real deal, authentically from the 15th century. It's real again. And then in 2021, Yale says, nope, it's definitely a fake, and then they quietly took it off public display for good.
And here's the central problem, laid out plain and simple. How can you have an authentic 15th century piece of parchment with 20th century ink on it? The geography it shows is shockingly accurate. It even lines up with the old Viking sagas. And yet, the official story is forgery, and now the map itself is locked away. It's become an academic cold case, where the number one piece of evidence has been locked in a file drawer, maybe forever.
So, let's recap. We've got a Mayan rocket man, forbidden sky beings from Australia, and a pre-Columbian map of America. 3 totally different stories from different parts of the world, but if you take a step back, a really interesting pattern starts to show up.
Look at what they all have in common. Every single one of them throws a wrench in the official historical timeline. Every single one ignites a massive, furious debate. And in every single case, the story ends the same way. Key details never get explained, and access to the actual object, it becomes restricted, controlled, or just plain forbidden. It really makes you wonder if that's just a coincidence, right?
Which leads us to our final big question. If these are just 3 examples that we happen to know about, what else is out there? What other artifacts are just sitting in the basements of museums or being protected by ancient traditions, holding secrets that could completely change how we see ourselves? Maybe the biggest lesson here is that history isn't a finished story. It's a massive landscape, full of buried secrets, just waiting for someone to start digging.